Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, Emily.
Hello.
Right now, many of us are seeing headlines just filled with travel chaos, particularly here across the UK.
hmm
It seems largely down to widespread airline strikes. We're talking about a real ripple effect, aren't we? Canceled flights, people stranded.
Oh, absolutely. Those incredibly long queues you see snaking through departure halls.
Exactly. And just this huge wave of frustration hitting not just holiday makers, but, business travelers, the whole aviation system, really.
It's certainly a challenging period for anyone trying to fly right now. These aren't
Hmm.
just minor hiccups, are they? They
Hmm.
really highlight some significant underlying pressures.
Yeah, pressures within the aviation industry that have maybe been building for some time.
Precisely. Things that perhaps the pandemic brought to the surface.
Absolutely. And to really get under the skin of what's happening, we're delighted to welcome an expert who can shed some serious light on this.
Happy to be here.
Joining us today is James Cartwright. He's a leading aviation analyst and a senior fellow at the UK Center for Transport Studies. A very warm welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
And a quick hello to everyone watching. Thanks for tuning in to Westferry Times.
Yes, hello, everyone.
So let's get straight to it then. What's the real engine driving these widespread groundings we're seeing? What's the fundamental story here?
Well, it's not really a simple single cause. It's more of a confluence of factors, a perfect storm, as some people have been calling it.
Okay.
We're definitely still feeling the aftershocks of the pandemic. That led to significant staff reductions across the whole sector.
Right, the cutbacks.
Exactly. Now, with travel demand surging back, airlines and airports are really struggling. They just can't recruit and train staff quickly enough to keep pace.
That makes sense.
And on top of that, you've got the current cost of living crisis hitting everyone hard, including aviation workers. Many of them are looking for wages that reflect those increased financial pressures.
Understandable.
And finally, well, we're seeing a noticeable uptick in union activity. Workers are collectively pushing for, improved pay and better working conditions. It's hitting lower wage sectors like ground handling particularly hard.
Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into who exactly is involved. You mentioned different groups of workers. Can you break that down for us a bit?
Certainly, we're seeing action from a whole range of essential workers across the system. You've got ground crew vital for baggage handling, aircraft servicing,
Hmm.
air traffic controllers managing the skies, cabin crew looking after passenger safety, and even airport security staff, the first point of contact for many.
Wow, so it's quite broad.
Very broad. And their demands generally center on pay, which, well, hasn't kept pace with inflation
Hmm.
or doesn't reflect the increased workload post-pandemic.
And it's not just pay, though, is it?
No, absolutely not. There are also significant concerns about what many describe as unsustainable working hours and just, well, deteriorating conditions overall. In terms of unions, you're seeing key players like GMB, Unite, BAL Pay for pilots, and PCS representing some civil servants and airport staff. They're all active in negotiations.
And is this disruption mainly a UK problem, or are we seeing this elsewhere?
Oh, it's definitely part of a broader European pattern. We've seen significant industrial action affecting air travel in France, Germany, Spain, Italy.
Right.
However, the impact in the UK has been particularly pronounced, especially at the big hubs like Heathrow, Gatwick, Manchester, just given the sheer volume of traffic they handle.
And that means certain airlines feel it more?
Exactly. Airlines with big operations there, like British Airways and EasyJet, have naturally felt a pretty substantial impact.
It sounds like these aren't just, spontaneous walkouts then. We're talking about organized efforts.
Absolutely. The vast majority are indeed being led and coordinated by the established trade unions I mentioned, GMB, Unite, and so on.
Uh,
Some strikes were announced well in advance, which gives some predictability, I suppose. Others have unfortunately followed the collapse of last-ditch negotiation attempts.
Frustrating for everyone.
Very. And there's this clear underlying feeling among many aviation workers. They feel they made considerable sacrifices, took pay cuts even, to help airlines weather the pandemic.
Yeah.
And now, with the industry showing signs of recovery, they believe they just aren't seeing a fair return for that loyalty and hard work.
Yeah.
They feel a bit left behind.
That gives us a good understanding of the context. So let's zero in on what these unions are actually asking for at the negotiating table. What are their primary demands?
Well, the core demand, the one that resonates across most disputes, is pay restoration.
Right. Getting back what was lost.
Yeah, exactly. As we touched on, many face pay freezes or even cuts during the pandemic crisis. Now, with passenger numbers rebounding, some airlines returning to profit, the unions are pushing hard. They want pre-pandemic wages back, plus adjustments for the cost of living increases we've all seen.
Makes sense. Is it just pay, though?
No, not solely about pay. Another critical demand, especially for flight crews pilots, cabin crew, is for more humane, more predictable work rosters.
Ah, schedules.
Yes, current practices often mean very long shifts, incredibly tight turnarounds between flights, and just a lack of predictability. It really impacts well-being and, potentially safety too.
And how have the airlines been responding? Are they all singing from the same hymn sheet, or?
No, definitely not. We're observing quite a spectrum of responses. Some seem to be engaging in good faith negotiations, trying to find compromises.
Okay.
Others, though, are taking a more resistant stance. They often cite ongoing economic uncertainties, rising fuel costs, things like that.
Which must be frustrating for employees at those airlines.
Absolutely. It reinforces that feeling that their contributions during the tough times are now being undervalued as things pick up again.
It sounds like the issues really go beyond just the numbers on a paycheck. You mentioned the human impact rosters, conditions. What else is fueling this?
Well, beyond the financial side, there are deep concerns around basic dignity and respect. We hear consistent reports of airlines' operating routes significantly understaffed,
Stretching people thin.
immensely, which places huge pressure on existing employees. Issues like not enough rest breaks, not enough time for meals, just feeling overworked, unsupported. They come up frequently.
So the job itself has changed.
Many feel the fundamental nature of their jobs has deteriorated. Increased workloads, fewer resources, and ultimately, when you have a workforce experiencing burnout, feeling undervalued, it inevitably hits the passenger experience, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I've definitely felt that tension in airports recently. Which brings us to the people caught right in the middle. The passengers, what's the on-the-ground reality for them?
Oh, it's been a period of significant disruption and, frankly, distress for many travelers.
Well,
We've seen widespread flight cancellations, often with very little notice.
leaving people stranded.
Exactly. Stranded in airports, sometimes for days.
Yeah.
Even flights that do operate are frequently hit by last-minute delays, unexpected reroutes. It just throws careful plans into complete disarray.
And some airports have had to limit numbers, haven't they?
Yes, facing severe operational challenges. Some major airports have imposed passenger caps, trying to manage the flow.
So we're not just talking minor delays here. People are missing important things.
Precisely. Missed family reunions, disrupted business deals, people unable to attend weddings, funerals, crucial life events.
And the knock-on effects. Lost bags.
Yes, beyond the immediate travel headaches, the strain leads to other issues, like an increase in lost or mishandled luggage. Understandably, all this generates significant frustration, rising tensions in terminals. It's a real logistical nightmare for many.
And this is all hitting during the peak summer travel season, which just amplifies everything.
Absolutely. Affecting families, individuals who've likely planned these trips, saved up for them for a long time.
Are people managing to find other ways to travel? Is it putting pressure elsewhere?
Yes. Definitely seeing increased demand and pressure on alternatives like trains, ferries. People desperately trying to find ways to get where they need to go.
But that's not always easy either, is it?
No, those alternatives often have their own capacity limits, can face delays too. It's not always a viable or stress-free solution for everyone hit by cancellations.
So for those passengers facing cancellations or big delays, what are their rights? Are there protections they should know about?
Absolutely. And this is crucial for listeners to know. In the UK, we have regulations called UK 261. They mirror the EU rules.
Okay, UK 261.
Yes. They provide rights for air passengers, including compensation for cancellations and significant delays that are within the airline's control, like strikes due to staffing issues, for example.
How much compensation are we talking?
It can range up to £520 depending on the flight distance and how long you're delayed.
That's significant.
It is. But it's crucial. Passengers are aware of these rights because, unfortunately, airlines don't always shout about it.
Right, they might not volunteer the information.
Exactly. And navigating the claims process can sometimes be complex, a bit time-consuming for individuals on their own.
It certainly sounds like passengers need to be informed and maybe a bit assertive. Okay, let's shift focus a bit. What about the government and regulators? What role are they playing in all this?
Well, the UK government is undoubtedly under pressure to respond. We've seen reports of emergency meetings bringing unions and airline execs together.
They're to find solutions.
Trying to facilitate solutions, yes. But to date, there hasn't been a huge amount of formal government intervention. No major new legislation specifically targeting these issues yet.
Is there debate about that?
Oh, yes. There's a clear political debate. Some MPs are advocating for stronger regulation, trying to prevent this becoming the norm. Others worry about government overreach in the private sector.
I know in some other countries like France, they have rules about minimum service levels during strikes. Is that being discussed here?
It's certainly a topic that gets raised. The idea of a minimum service law to keep some flights operating during strikes, it's been suggested.
But it's controversial.
Highly sensitive, yes. Trade unions generally argue strongly against it. They see it as fundamentally undermining the right to strike, which is a critical tool for them in negotiations.
So it's a tricky political balance.
A very delicate balance between minimizing public disruption and upholding workers' rights.
What about the Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA? What's their role?
The CAA is involved. Their main focus seems to be pushing airlines to communicate better with passengers about their rights during disruptions.
Okay.
And overseeing the contingency plans airlines have, they're pushing for more accountability on how passengers are treated.
Do they have enough power, though?
Well, there is a perception in some quarters that the CAA's regulatory powers might be less robust compared to authorities elsewhere. Some argue this might limit their ability to really prevent or resolve these large-scale disruptions effectively.
This paints a picture of, well, pretty significant challenges across the board, doesn't it? Looking at the bigger picture, do you think these strikes point to deeper systemic problems? Is the industry itself fundamentally struggling?
I think it's fair to say the pandemic acted as a powerful catalyst. It really exposed and accelerated some underlying vulnerabilities that were already there.
Like what?
Issues around staffing levels, training capacity, even corporate culture in some places. During the pandemic, airlines cut deep workforce, infrastructure.
Understandably, perhaps?
Yes, responding to the demand drop.
Yeah.
But now demand has rebounded much faster than expected. They're facing huge difficulties scaling back up quickly enough.
So the cuts went too deep.
Arguably, yes. And there's also a real challenge attracting and retaining skilled workers now. It suggests potential issues with the talent pipeline feeding into the industry.
So looking ahead, what are the potential solutions? How does the industry fix these deeper problems and become more resilient?
Well, I believe it needs a multifaceted approach. From a labor angle, more competitive pay is crucial pay that reflects the job demands and the economy.
Right.
Also, creating clearer, more attractive career paths. Opportunities for development could really help attract and keep talent long-term.
And a shift in thinking.
Yes, I think there needs to be a kind of reset of expectations, a recognition of how demanding these jobs are, and a commitment to more sustainable, more humane working conditions.
So the old model needs to change.
Ultimately, the traditional aviation model, often relying on very tight margins, sometimes unsustainable labor practices, may need to evolve to create a more resilient and, frankly, more humane sector for everyone.
What about the low-cost carriers? Where do they fit in? Did their model contribute to this, or could they be part of the solution?
It's a really complex dynamic, isn't it? Low-cost carriers undeniably democratized air travel, made it accessible.
Sure.
But their business model was historically based on aggressive cost-cutting, and that often directly impacted labor costs and conditions across the whole industry.
So they drove down standards, in a way.
It certainly put pressure on costs. Now, while some low-cost carriers are exploring more flexible, maybe more sustainable models, others seem quite resistant to changes that might affect their tight cost structures.
This has been incredibly insightful, really getting into the nuts and bolts of a very complex situation. Before we wrap up, what would be your key takeaways for anyone planning to travel by air this summer? Any advice?
Yes, for anyone planning to fly soon, a few key things. Firstly, plan ahead as much as possible, and definitely include contingency plans. Think about alternative transport if your flight gets disrupted.
Good point.
Secondly, know your passenger rights under UK 261. Don't just assume the airline will sort everything or offer compensation proactively. You might need to pursue it.
Be informed.
Exactly. And finally, and this is really important, please try to exercise patience and kindness towards airport staff. They are often under immense pressure in very tough circumstances, genuinely doing their best.
That's a vital reminder. Looking beyond this summer's chaos, then, do you see this disruption potentially leading to any longer-term positive changes? Could it be a catalyst?
I certainly hope so.
Well,
While it's causing considerable pain now, it's also a crucial moment of reckoning for the whole industry.
an opportunity, maybe.
Potentially, yes. If airlines, airports, government bodies genuinely heed the underlying concerns being raised by workers and are willing to make meaningful, lasting changes, then yes, this period could mark a turning point. It could lead to a more resilient, sustainable, and as I said, a more humane aviation sector for the workforce and for passengers.
Well, thank you so very much for sharing your expertise and providing such crucial clarity on this complex and rapidly evolving situation. It's been really helpful.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me on the deep dive.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive for today. Thank you to all of you for joining us as we navigated the turbulent skies of UK air travel. If you found this discussion helpful, please do remember to subscribe to the deep dive right here at Westferry Times for more in-depth analysis. We look forward to catching you next time. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Safe travels to everyone out there. And maybe a final thought for you to consider. How might these widespread disruptions fundamentally reshape not only the immediate future of air travel, but also our longer-term expectations as passengers? Expectations around cost, convenience, and maybe the overall reliability we demand from flying. Something to think about.